The rain had begun to fall, just as the last traces of daylight faded behind the mountains. A thin mist curled around the small house where Diep lived, as though the night itself was holding its breath. Inside, the dim yellow light flickered softly, casting quiet shadows across the wooden floor. James stood near the doorway, still wearing the weight of the world on his shoulders, his eyes dark with exhaustion and fear he refused to admit. Diep sat on the edge of her small bed, her hands clasped so tightly the knuckles had turned white. She knew, without anyone telling her, that tonight was different. Tonight, James had come not as the confident CEO who conquered negotiations and faced down storms, but as a man frightened of losing everything, including her. He walked toward her slowly, his footsteps soft but heavy. "Diep," he whispered, kneeling down so he could look into her eyes. The intensity in his gaze made her heart tremble. "Tomorrow, everything will change." She swallowed, her voice barely a breath. "James, you don't have to face this alone." But James shook his head and took her hands in his, warm, trembling, desperate. "I have to," he said. "If I don't confront them, if I don't expose the truth, they'll keep hurting everyone around me. They'll come for me. They'll come for you." Diep's breath caught in her throat. She knew danger followed James, but hearing it from his own lips, it felt suddenly real, close, cold. James lowered his forehead to her hands. "Diep," he whispered, "if I fail, will you leave me?" The question shattered her. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. She had spent days selling guava at the market, hiding her fear, pretending everything was normal, while secretly praying he was safe. She had stayed strong when she thought she would break, and now he was asking if she would walk away. She lifted his chin gently so he would look at her. "James," she said softly, her voice trembling but certain, "I will not leave you. Not tomorrow, not ever." For the first time that night, James allowed himself to breathe. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as though the world was already crashing down. Outside, the storm thickened. Inside, their promise became the only light left burning. The next morning arrived far too early. The storm had passed, leaving the air sharp with the scent of wet earth. Diep tied her hair back, packed her basket with guava she had picked at dawn, and headed to the market like she always did. But her steps were slower, her heart heavier. Every face she passed, every unfamiliar shadow, made her wonder if someone was watching her, because of James. She tried to shake the thought away. She had promised him she wouldn't leave. She had promised she would stay strong. So she forced herself to smile as she reached her usual spot under the old tamarind tree. "Chioi and Tudi, if it's sweet, please support me," she called out politely, handing samples to customers who walked by. People smiled, tasted, bought. She thanked each person, grateful for the distraction, for the normalcy, until she noticed a man standing across the road. He wasn't buying anything. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was simply watching her. Her breath tightened. She glanced away, pretending not to see him, but the hairs on her arms prickled with unease. She had seen him before. Once, 2 days ago, near the alley where she bought vegetables. Another time, standing by the bridge when she was on her way home. She had told herself it was coincidence. But now she was sure. Someone was following her. A chill ran down her spine. She tried to keep her voice steady as she served another customer, but when she bent down to grab more guava, her hands shook. Diep, you said they might come for me. Is this what you meant? Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through her fear. Diep! She turned, startled but relieved, to see Pat approaching with a small bag of groceries. His footsteps were hurried, his expression serious. Why do you look so pale? Is something wrong? Diep forced a smile. I'm fine, just tired. But Pat didn't believe her. His eyes flicked toward the man across the road, who instantly looked away. Diep, Pat whispered, you should not stay here alone. I have to work, she insisted. He leaned closer. I need to tell you something. It's about James. Her heart stopped. What happened? Pat glanced around, lowering his voice. He's in danger, and so are you. Last night, they were supposed to kill him. Diep's blood turned cold. And the person they really wanted to hurt, Pat said slowly, is you. The basket nearly slipped from her hands as fear swallowed her whole. Diep felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The noise of the market, people bargaining, children laughing, vendors calling, faded into a distant hum. All she could hear was her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Fat, what do you mean they wanted to hurt me? She whispered, afraid that saying the words aloud would make them real. Fat's jaw tightened. James didn't want you to know. He thought he could handle everything alone. But last night, someone came after him. Diep's breath caught. Is he hurt? He escaped. Barely. But the men who came weren't actually there to kill him. They were sending a message. They want him to suffer. And they know that hurting you is the fastest way to break him. Her knees weakened. She clutched the edge of her basket to steady herself. The man across the road had disappeared. Somehow, that made her even more afraid. James told me, Fought continued quietly, that if he fails tomorrow, he might never come back. That's why he asked you that question last night. Diep closed her eyes, remembering James's trembling hand, his voice thick with fear he tried so hard to hide. If I fail, will you leave me? She had never heard him sound so vulnerable. Now she finally understood why. Fat, tell me everything. I need to know the truth. Fat hesitated, then nodded. James's father, the man who ruined John's family. That story is bigger than you think. The people involved, they're powerful, dangerous. James found proof that could expose them. He's going to confront them tomorrow. And John? John wants revenge. He wants James to lose everything: career, freedom, love, especially love. Fought lowered his voice. John's men were the ones who followed you. They were the ones in the alley last week. They're watching you to control him. A wave of nausea washed over her. So what do I do? She whispered helplessly. Fought looked at her firmly. You need to leave town for a few days. James told me that if anything happened to you, he wouldn't be able to fight anymore. If you want to help him, you must stay safe. Diep stared at her guava basket, her only source of income, her small world of normalcy. Everything felt suddenly fragile. I won't run, she said softly but firmly. I won't hide. James is risking everything for the truth. I can't abandon him. Diep. No, she said, her voice steady now. If they want to hurt me, to break him, then I won't let them win. For the first time that morning, her fear transformed into something fiercer. Determination. Whatever came next, she would face it. For him. The sky was already dimming when Diep returned home. Her steps were heavy, but her heart was heavier still. She lit the small oil lamp on her wooden cable and sat silently, staring at the flickering flame. Shadows danced along the walls like restless spirits, whispering warnings she didn't want to hear. A soft knock came at the door. Her breath stopped. "Diep," a familiar voice murmured. She opened the door, and there he stood, James, exhausted, disheveled, but alive. His hair was damp with sweat, his shirt wrinkled as if he had run all the way from the edge of danger to her doorstep. She didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around him. For a moment, the world became small enough to hold between them. James trembled slightly, but he held her just as tightly. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her hair. "I promised myself I wouldn't come tonight. It's too dangerous." "Then why did you?" she asked softly. "Because I needed to see you one more time before tomorrow." She pulled back, reading the exhaustion etched into his eyes. "Thought told me everything." James stiffened. "Why didn't you tell me they were after me? Why did you carry all of this alone?" His voice cracked. "Because loving you is the only part of my life that's pure. The only part I wanted to keep untouched by all this ugliness. I didn't want you to live in fear." She touched his cheek gently. "I'd rather live in fear with you than live peacefully without you." His breath shook. Silence settled between them, soft, fragile, sacred. Finally, James broke it. "Tomorrow, if something goes wrong, if I don't come back—" "Don't say that," Diep whispered harshly. "You need to hear it," he insisted. His fingers found hers, lacing together tightly. "If I fail, you must leave town. Don't wait for me. Don't risk your life for a man who couldn't protect you." Tears welled in her eyes, blurring his face. "James, I won't leave you. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever." He shook his head slowly. "Diep, promise me." She looked at him, this man who had fought so hard, suffered so silently, loved so deeply. And in that moment she understood. His plea wasn't about fear of losing her, it was about fear of causing her pain. Her tears fell. "I can't promise that," she whispered. "Because I won't abandon you, no matter what happens." James closed his eyes, as if her words hurt and healed him at the same time. He pulled her close, holding her with desperate tenderness. And in the fragile quiet of that night, with danger drawing nearer and dawn waiting like a verdict, they simply breathed in each other's presence, not knowing if this would be their last peaceful moment together. Moral lesson. In the silent spaces between fear and hope, between love and sacrifice, James and Diep's story teaches us something that many people spend their entire lives trying to understand. It reminds us that love is never just a beautiful feeling. It is a responsibility, a choice, and sometimes a battlefield where both hearts must fight not against each other, but against the world that tries to tear them apart. James believed that protecting Diep meant pushing her away. He believed that love required him to walk alone, to carry the danger on his shoulders, and to disappear from her life so she would remain safe. His mistake was not in loving her too little, but in underestimating her strength. Diep, on the other hand, showed what true devotion looks like. She refused to abandon him even when fear was stronger than comfort, even when her own safety was at risk. Her love was not born from dependency, it was born from courage. Through them, we learn that relationships do not survive merely on promises spoken in peaceful times. They survive because two people are willing to stand beside each other in storms, misunderstandings, threats, and sacrifices. Love becomes real when both hearts carry the weight together. Another lesson lies in the danger of silence. James tried to protect Diep by hiding the truth, but in doing so, he created a deeper wound. Love demands transparency, not because truth is always easy, but because shared burdens are lighter than hidden ones. When we conceal our struggles from the people who care for us, we unintentionally shut them out of the very space where love is meant to grow. And finally, their journey reminds us of the quiet bravery in vulnerability. To love someone is to expose your heart to the possibility of loss, to admit that their presence shapes your world, and to confess that life is softer, louder, and more meaningful with them in it. It is not weakness to depend on another person. It is a profound human truth. If James and Diep taught us anything, it is this: love that endures danger is not foolish, it is sacred. Love that resists fear is not naive, it is powerful. And love that chooses to stay, even when escape is easier, is the kind of love that transforms lives. In the end, the greatest tragedy is not the obstacles lovers face, but the moments when fear convinces them to walk alone. True love does not ask us to run. It asks us to return, again and again, with honesty, courage, and an unshakable heart.